Ahoy there, listeners, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're ditching the scuba gear and grabbing our shovels because we're going on a treasure hunt.
Treasure hunt sounds exciting.
Oh, it is. We're diving into a whole stack of historical accounts and local lore, all about buried treasure.
Buried treasure, huh? Like pirates and stuff.
You guessed it, pirate treasure. And we're heading to 1870s Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia. I know a bit about that area. Beautiful coastline, lots of history.
Exactly. It's a place practically overflowing with tales of buccaneers and their hidden loot.
See, that's what always gets me about these stories, the mix of fact and fiction.
Right. It makes you wonder how much truth is really buried beneath the surface, literally.
Yeah.
And the biggest mystery of them all, Oak Island.
Oak Island. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the story there?
Well, this tiny island is rumored to hold the riches of Captain Kidd himself.
Captain Kidd. Wow, that's a name that sends shivers down your spine.
I know, right? We're going to be sifting through centuries of speculation and clues.
That's like a real deep dive.
Oh, it is. Some of these details are absolutely wild. And you might be surprised to learn that pirates didn't always bury their treasure.
Really? I always picture them burying chests full of gold on deserted islands.
That's the classic image, but in reality, most pirates lived a pretty hand-to-mouth existence, spending their loot quickly on things like rum,
Rum? Well, I can't say I'm surprised. What else?
gambling, and, well, more rum.
Okay, so maybe not the most financially savvy bunch.
Uh-huh, right. But it makes you wonder, if there was treasure on Oak Island, who could have possibly hidden it and why go through all the trouble?
That's a good question.
To understand this, we need to travel back to the late 1800s and join a group of young adventurers sailing the Nova Scotia coast.
Oh, so this is where the adventure begins.
Yeah. They're a mix of curious boys and their slightly exasperated but trusty captain.
Oh, I can already picture this group, young and full of adventure.
And their first stop, the infamous Sable Island.
Sable Island. Now, that's a name I've heard before, but remind me.
Well, picture this. A giant, constantly shifting sandbar, notorious for shipwrecks.
Yikes, that sounds treacherous.
It's an eerie and desolate place, littered with the skeletal remains of ships lost to that unforgiving sea.
Definitely not a place you want to get shipwrecked.
No kidding. But it's here that our young adventurers hear a story that sets their hearts racing.
Oh, what kind of story?
The island's governor tells them about a recent storm that uncovered an ancient shipwreck.
Ooh, an ancient shipwreck. Now we're talking.
And get this, the initial examination hinted at a Spanish origin.
Spanish. You don't think?
Possibly even a connection to those buccaneers who once roamed these waters.
Now it's getting interesting. So, Spanish connection, huh? What does the governor make of it all?
He speculated that it wasn't just any Spanish ship, but a galleon captured by buccaneers, who then stashed its treasure elsewhere before abandoning the wreck.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's like the start of a treasure map. First, find the wrecked Spanish galleon.
Uh-huh, yeah. But, we have to consider the context here.
What do you mean?
Well, think about the technology and resources available in the 17th century.
Ah, good point.
Could pirates really have pulled off such a complicated operation?
Now that you mention it, I'm picturing them with shovels and maybe a parrot for company. Not exactly high-tech equipment.
Right, and then there's the question of why bury the treasure at all? Pirates were all about speed and efficiency.
Yeah, you're right. A simpler hiding place would have made a lot more sense.
Exactly.
So maybe we need to temper our expectations a little.
Maybe just a tad.
But still, a wrecked Spanish galleon is a pretty good starting point for a treasure hunt, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I can't argue with that. So where did our adventurers head next?
Well, fueled by these stories, they set sail for Mahone Bay.
Mahone Bay. I know that area. It's beautiful, all those picturesque islands.
Absolutely. But beneath that serene beauty lies a history steeped in pirate lore.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
And the most intriguing of these islands, you guessed it, Oak Island.
Okay, so this is where things really get interesting, right?
Oh, you better believe it. Tell me everything.
All right, so imagine you're one of these young boys eager for adventure. You meet a local who spins you a tale full of intriguing details.
This is where I'd be hanging on to every word.
He describes this mysterious circular depression on the island, strategically marked by a lone oak tree.
Hold on. A deep pit marked by a lone oak tree? That sounds like something straight out of a pirate's storybook. What else?
Well, they discovered a shaft there, and it was showing signs of a deep and elaborate pit. Possibly used to conceal something valuable.
So what kind of valuable something are we talking about?
Well, alongside the pit, they found West Indian grass, coconut husks, even sugarcane.
Sugarcane, what?
Yeah, all pointing to a connection to the Spanish Main, the heart of those buccaneers' hunting grounds.
So I've got a wrecked Spanish galleon and now possible links to the Spanish Main.
It certainly seems like the plot is thickening.
It does, but here's where the story takes another intriguing twist.
So, go on.
The legend claims that the first dhows were thwarted by flooding.
Flooding? How?
Apparently, a cleverly designed drainage system was protecting whatever lay buried beneath.
Wait a minute. A drainage system? Pirates? I don't know, that sounds a little far-fetched to me.
Yeah, building such a system would have been a massive undertaking, even with today's technology.
Right, and remember, pirates were pragmatic. It's unlikely they would have invested so much time and effort in something so elaborate.
And to top it off, they also found a stone with an inscription in a nearby chimney.
An inscription. Wow, that just adds fuel to the fire.
Doesn't it? It seems like every new detail just deepens the mystery.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
So, did anyone ever manage to get past this legendary flooding?
Well, countless treasure hunters have tried their luck over the years.
Tried their luck, huh? How so?
We're talking digging shafts, constructing cofferdams.
Cofferdams, what are those?
They're temporary enclosures built in the water to allow excavation.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And they even use steam engines to pump out water.
Wow, that's dedication. But you're saying they were all unsuccessful?
So far, yes. The Oak Island treasure, if it even exists, remains tantalizingly out of reach.
It's amazing how some mysteries just refuse to be solved.
It really is. It makes you wonder what would possess people to go to such lengths.
I know, it's the allure of the unknown, right? The possibility of striking it rich.
You got it. So where do our young adventurers fit into all of this? Did they try their luck as well?
Two of them, Bart and Pat, couldn't resist the allure of Oak Island.
Oh no, what did they do?
Fueled by youthful bravado and a thirst for adventure, they snuck off to the island.
Determined to find the legendary money pit.
Yep, that's right.
Oh boy, I have a feeling this isn't going to end well. What did they find on the island?
They found a landscape just scarred by previous treasure hunts. Flooded pits everywhere, remnants of past expeditions.
Makes you think, huh?
Yeah. It's a reminder that Oak Island has a long history of attracting these dreamers and fortune seekers, all captivated by that legend of buried riches.
You have to wonder what was going through their minds as they explored that island. I mean, it's one thing to hear stories, but it's another to actually be there, surrounded by evidence of past failures. Did it make them rethink their own treasure hunt at all?
Maybe, but youthful enthusiasm can be a powerful force.
Yeah, that's true.
Remember, they were convinced they would be the ones to finally crack the Oak Island code.
So they were still looking for that legendary money pit.
Oh, yeah. They were looking for that central depression on the island, believed to be the key to the treasure.
So did they find it?
They did, or at least they thought they did. They discovered a promising pit near the supposed location of the money pit and decided to investigate.
Okay. But remember what we said about pirates being pragmatic.
Exactly. Well, these boys were anything but.
What do you mean?
They lowered themselves into the pit using a rope without any real plan or proper equipment.
Oh no, that's a recipe for disaster.
It is. It seems that allure of the treasure overshadowed any sense of caution.
So what happened once they were down in the pit?
As they descended, they began to notice the pit's timber supports were decaying.
Oh no.
Some were even rotted through.
I can't even imagine. Imagine the feeling of the ground literally crumbling beneath you.
Yeah, it's like something straight out of a nightmare.
What did they do?
They tried to climb back up, of course, but the rotten timbers made it nearly impossible. And to make matters worse, they realized the water at the bottom of the pit was rising.
They were trapped.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm starting to get claustrophobic just thinking about it. Darkness, rising water,
Yeah.
crumbling walls. That's a terrifying combination.
It is. And the psychological impact must have been immense. Imagine the fear, the uncertainty, the dwindling hope as they realized the gravity of their situation.
It's a stark reminder that treasure hunting isn't just about excitement and adventure.
It's not.
There are very real dangers involved, and sometimes the legends we chase can blind us to those dangers.
Absolutely.
So what happened to Bart and Pat? Did anyone come to their rescue?
Their situation was dire. Pat even tried climbing down to the very bottom of the pit, hoping to find solid ground, or some way out. But what he found was even more terrifying. The pit's bottom had completely caved in, swallowed by that rising water.
That's just awful. They must have felt completely hopeless at that point.
They were running out of options. They scrambled back up to a ledge, just above the rising water line. But even this temporary reprieve was threatened by this massive cracked timber hanging precariously above them. The weight of their situation, both literally and figuratively, was palpable.
It sounds like they were in a fight for their lives. So
Sure.
did they manage to escape?
They did, but it was a close call. Remember, this is the 1800s, long before cell phones, GPS.
Right.
They were completely isolated, relying solely on their own ingenuity and will to survive.
So how did they get out of that pit? Did someone find them?
Well, as night fell, their situation took an even more sinister turn. They remembered this chilling story told by a local about the island,
What was the story?
claiming that no one would ever find the treasure without a sacrifice. A sacrifice of human life.
Oh, wow. A local curse. That's just what they needed to hear in that moment.
It's a classic element of treasure lore, right? The idea that great riches come at a price.
Yeah.
But in their current predicament, it must have taken on a whole new level of terrifying meaning.
Absolutely. So what happened? Did the curse come true?
Thankfully, no.
Yeah.
They spent a harrowing night in that pit, the water rising inch by inch, the darkness closing in around them. It was a test of their endurance, their resilience, and ultimately their friendship.
You know, it's amazing how, even in the direst circumstances, human connection can be a source of strength and hope.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm still on the edge of my seat. Did they manage to escape the rising water?
Just when they were about to give up hope, something incredible happened. The water stopped rising.
Really?
Yeah, it seemed to reach a peak and then slowly started to recede. They were still trapped, but for the moment, the immediate threat of drowning had passed.
That must have felt like a miracle. What caused the water to recede?
It turned out the pressure from the rising water had shifted the timber supports, creating these wider gaps between them. With renewed hope, they managed to climb up inch by agonizing inch, finally reaching the surface just as dawn broke.
Wow, what a harrowing escape. They were incredibly lucky to survive that ordeal. But what about their friends back on the mainland? Did they know what had happened?
Their friends back in Mahone Bay are waking up to a very concerning situation. Their friends are nowhere to be found.
You can imagine the panic that must have set in.
Oh, absolutely. No one saw them leave. No one knew where they went. It's a parent's worst nightmare.
Absolutely. And remember, communication wasn't what it is today.
Right.
No quick text messages to check in or social media posts to track their whereabouts. What did their friends do?
They searched everywhere, fearing the worst. Then, a local man arrived with unsettling news.
What did he say?
He had seen Bart and Pat heading towards Oak Island earlier that morning, determined to find that buried treasure.
Of course. It's like something straight out of a movie. Did this local man try to stop them? Did he know about the dangers of the island?
He did. He had warned them about the risks, even mentioning that local legend about the island demanding a sacrifice. Now, consumed by guilt and worry, he returned to the mainland to raise the alarm.
Wow, talk about a heavy burden to bear. I can't imagine the anxiety he must have felt. So what did the friends do once they heard this news?
Realizing their friends were in potential danger, they immediately set off on a rescue mission, guided by the local man who last saw them. They arrived at Oak Island, their hearts pounding with a mixture of hope and fear.
It's incredible how quickly they sprung into action. It speaks volumes about their friendship and loyalty. What happened when they got to the island?
They found the abandoned boat, a silent testament to Bart and Pat's presence on the island. They fanned out, desperately searching for any sign of their missing friends. The tension must have been palpable.
You're right. It's like every second counts in a situation like this. Did they find any clues to Bart and Pat's whereabouts?
They eventually stumbled upon the pit, the one with the collapsed timber supports partially flooded. It was a chilling sight, a stark reminder of the dangers lurking beneath the island's surface.
I can't even imagine what must have been going through their minds at that moment. Did they find Bart and Pat in the pit?
They feared the worst.
Yeah.
They searched frantically around the pit, calling out their names, but there was no answer. Just silence.
Oh no, how awful. But you said they were rescued, right? What happened?
Just as they were about to give up hope, a voice called out from behind them. It was Bart.
Bart.
He and Pat emerged from the woods, exhausted but unharmed. They had managed to escape the pit and find their way back to safety.
What a relief. It's like a weight lifted off everyone's shoulders. What a reunion that must have been.
It was a mix of relief, laughter, and probably a healthy dose of scolding for their reckless behavior. But ultimately, they were just grateful to be alive and reunited.
I bet. So Bart and Pat survived Oak Island, but did they ever find the treasure?
No. They left the mysteries of Oak Island behind. Their treasure-hunting ambitions were replaced by a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life.
That's a powerful lesson to learn. So what happened next? Did they just sail back home?
Their journey wasn't over yet. They were still miles from their starting point, with limited resources and a dwindling timeline.
What did they do?
They decided the fastest way home was to sail across the Bay of Fundy, hoping to catch a steamer on the other side.
The Bay of Fundy. Isn't that known for its extreme tides?
It is. It's also known for its powerful currents and unpredictable weather. They convinced a local fisherman, Benny, to take them.
So what happened on their journey across the bay? Did they run into any trouble?
As they set sail, a thick fog rolled in, blanketing the bay in a dense, disorienting mist.
Oh no, not again. First a shipwreck, then a collapsing pit, and now they're lost at sea in a fog.
It just goes to show that even the most carefully laid plans can be disrupted by unforeseen circumstances. They spent hours lost in that fog, Benny trying his best to navigate by instinct and memory, but it was a hopeless situation.
What happened?
Their supplies dwindled and tensions rose as the fog persisted. And to make matters worse, the wind shifted,
Oh no.
pushing them further off course and towards a notoriously dangerous section of the bay known as Cape Split.
Cape Split? What's that?
Imagine towering cliffs jutting out into the sea, with the full force of the Bay of Fundy's legendary tides crashing against them.
That sounds terrifying. It's one thing to get lost in a fog, but to be pushed towards treacherous cliffs? I can only imagine their fear.
It was a desperate situation. They were exhausted, hungry, and lost, with the very real threat of being dashed against the rocks of Cape Split looming large.
So what did they do? How did they escape this new danger?
Benny, ever the resourceful sailor, rallied the boys.
What did he do?
He inspired them to take turns rowing through the night, battling both the tide and that fog. It was a grueling test of their strength and determination.
But they pushed on, right?
They did, driven by a shared desire to reach safety. And finally, after a seemingly endless night, the fog began to lift, revealing the shoreline.
They made it.
They had made it through the treacherous waters of Cape Split and reached the other side of the bay.
What a moment of triumph. They had faced one peril after another and emerged victorious. But they were still a long way from home, weren't they?
They were. They disembarked near a small village called Parsboro, exhausted and uncertain of what to do next. They'd missed the steamer they were hoping to catch and were now stranded far from home.
It seems like they just couldn't catch a break. But maybe their luck was about to change.
As they were talking to the innkeeper, they overheard him mention a group of young men who had recently arrived in Parsboro,
Really?
a group that sounded suspiciously like their friends from the Antelope.
Wait, what? Could it be true? Had their friends somehow managed to get ahead of them?
They rushed down to the harbor, hoping against hope that the innkeeper's words were true. And there, riding at anchor, they saw their beloved ship, the Antelope.
No way, I can't believe it. But how did the Antelope get there? I thought they had abandoned ship.
It turns out their old friend, Benny, the fisherman, who had rescued them from the wrecked ship weeks earlier, had picked up their friends just hours after they left the Antelope behind. He sailed the Antelope across the bay, arriving in Parsboro ahead of Fart and Pat.
That's incredible. Talk about a stroke of luck, or maybe it was fate. Their reunion must have been incredible.
It was a moment of pure joy and disbelief. After all they had been through, the sight of their ship and their friends was a true blessing. Their journey had been long and perilous, filled with narrow escapes and unexpected
That
twists.
sounds like it.
They had faced the dangers of the sea, the mysteries of a treasure-laden island, and the challenges of navigating an unpredictable world.
It's an incredible story of adventure, resilience, and the power of friendship. They may not have found the buried treasure of Oak Island, but they discovered something far more valuable.
What's that?
The strength of their bond and the realization that true riches lie not in material wealth, but in the connections we forge with others.
Beautifully said. Their adventure reminds us that sometimes the most valuable treasures are not the ones we dig up from the earth, but the ones we find within ourselves and in the relationships we cherish. And as we leave our young adventurers safely reunited with their ship and their friends, it's worth asking ourselves, what hidden treasures are waiting to be discovered in our own life's journey?